Welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Dave and Matt here with you. Hope you're off to a really great start on your Friday morning. If you're picking this podcast up 6 weeks later, hey, hope this has found you well wherever and whenever you might be listening or watching the show. Matt, top of the morning to you, buddy. I'm stoked. It's a sunny day outside, little chilly, going to be in the 50s today, baby.
I was going to say TGIF, man. I don't think I've used that since, the 90s, full house days.
Yeah,
but it's
right.
Gonna be beautiful 55 degrees outside. I can't wait for it, man.
We've used that every single week since the 1990s. Are you kidding me? TGIF has never gone away. I remember that used to mean there was going to be some really quality network television on.
Uncle Jesse.
That's what I remember. It's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a family affair tonight. We're going to sit down and watch this great network television together with only, at that time, I want to say 8 to 10 minutes of commercials. Now these network shows, from what I've heard, because I haven't watched one in a while, seem like they have like 16 minutes of commercials in them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I guess I didn't know why I was going to go back to Full House. That's when everybody thought Bob Saget was just some pure dad next door. So nobody ever knew how dirty of a comedian he was. So
rest in peace, Bob Saget, too, 100%. By the way. Right?
Yep.
Rest in peace, Bob Saget. Gosh, he was a guy that was taken too soon. Really funny cat. I can't remember because
very dirty.
Oh, no. I know he was
dirty
very
mouth on a stand-up.
Definitely. But it was something like you've mentioned that we didn't really know about. I forget, how is it that he passed away? I feel like he hit his head or something and went to sleep. He was on a shoot or doing a comedy show.
I think he had a show and he went to bed and never woke up, something like that.
Yeah. I want to say I remember hearing that his family eventually revealed the autopsy or something. And again, this is speculation from my memory, but I think I saw something on TMZ or People Magazine that he hit his head, didn't know that he had hit his head in any significant way, went to sleep and never woke up. Boy, that's a fucked up way to start the show. But Bob Saget, man, rest in peace, big guy.
I have Helen Keller in my thing, so I'll look up in my browser right now. I know you want to get to that later, but I'll look up some Bob Saget for you, make sure you can find out what's going on there.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's not super important. We know he's dead. I mean, that's not going to change much, right? So it's kind of like, anything. You can only die one time.
I hear you.
And unless you're, we won't get into that conversation. But I do want to talk about Helen Keller this morning, and for reasons that most of you are not going to see coming. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. As Matt mentioned, we're flying solo this morning, but we do have a couple of things that we want you to interact with us on. First, go to our Twitter feed at The Sports Carney, or go to our Facebook group page, which is now really starting to pick up. I mean, we're blowing up every single day, getting lots and lots of new members, and appreciate you jumping aboard with this. Take this morning's poll question and give us your thoughts about the best game from last night in the NCAA Sweet 16, which was incredible. The bar was going crazy. The recovery room was going crazy with these two games. Kansas State, Michigan State, UCLA, Gonzaga. Those were the two games that were making the people in the bar go crazy. So take this morning's poll question. Tell us which of those two games did you think was the best from last night. Now, UConn steamrolled, as I anticipated they would do, against Arkansas. And it's surprising to me, FAU, Florida Atlantic, did upset the Tennessee Volunteers, who were 4-point favorites. And I actually used that as my play of the day with ESPN
really?
105.5.
Man.
Yeah, no, not good, because Tennessee lost.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
said they upset them.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
I took Tennessee to win minus four points. Listen, Tennessee defended the three so well all season. They had just come off that victory against Duke, who looked like the best team in the entire field for what that was worth. So I really did think Tennessee would give FAU fits. FAU shoots 44% of their buckets from behind the three-point line. So I looked at Tennessee and said, they're going to stop that FAU three-point attack. FAU won't be able to score. Tennessee couldn't score, and it was a really low-scoring game. So that game's not going to be included in our, best of last night, nor would the UConn-Arkansas game be considered that. But UCLA, Gonzaga, down to the wire once again. Memories of when Jalen Suggs, nailed a half-court shot in for Gonzaga that propelled them to what at that time was the Final Four. They ended up making it to the national championship game in beating UCLA a couple of seasons ago. A kid from Las Vegas playing in his hometown in Las Vegas hit that shot for Gonzaga. So Gonzaga, UCLA, Kansas State, Michigan State, which of those two games was the best from last night? Now, also throughout the morning, Matt, you're going to be culling our polls from our Facebook group page. We're going to be looking at them as a battle of the polls, okay? We'll take a look at all the polls from this week, see which ones got the most action, see which ones you guys and gals were most interested in, and we'll use those as a topic of conversation. The Bucks are at the Jazz tonight. Bucks are 9-point favorites. We'll tell you what the total is on that and what you can expect from this Bucks and this Jazz team we've also got to look ahead to week 6 in the XFL. I know this seems crazy, but the XFL is really starting to find a footing here. The XFL, after their initial week, Matt, they did decline in some viewership numbers for sure, which you would anticipate, but you come from a historic high to anything else, and it's going to seem like a precipitous fall. The stadiums are being well attended. The games are actually being watched to a very, listen, in television terms, decent degree on the television platforms. And for the first time, week 6 of the XFL will feature a Monday night XFL game. So that's going to be kind of fun.
I'm looking forward to it this week. Sorry, I got my Excel in front of you. So if you wanted to go over,
you got it in front of me or in front of you?
I got some stuff in front of me. I just didn't know how far you want to go down this rabbit hole. With XFL, I'm falling in love with it. I guess there's a couple things that I have some issues with before I get into the games. If I want to give a rant.
Oh gosh, you've got a bitch about it. Go.
I got a couple bitches.
Okay, let's hear it.
Besides what's going on with the field out in Vegas, they have to figure out their goddamn yardsticks. They've been having problems at every effing game where there's a delay. Now, that just sounds like a stupid thing, but if this is professional sports, once again, I don't know why the NFL still has yardsticks, so that we can just get in. Don't need to get in that right off the bat. But ESPN or Disney, or who's owned by Disney, they really need to come out with an R-rated version for when the shit's on ESPN. Because there's so much of a delay, because there's so much cussing that I want to hear the R-rated version. Yeah,
see, I haven't listened to any of the broadcasts really. I've watched it on the TV a little bit, but I haven't listened to the broadcasts.
They bleep out everything.
Well,
but it's almost like a 10 sometimes it's a 5-second delay, then it's almost a 30-second delay because it's just and they're just dropping F-bombs against each other, and then they're getting ugly when the scuffles after the ends of plays. And then my other problem that I'm having is at the end of games when there's blowouts, there are so many fights, there are so many ejections where these guys are not acting like professional players. You can see where some of these guys really want to go out there.
So many fights.
There are fights. There are brawls at the end of the games. There are ejections. They also had, obviously, I don't want to get into the Dormady kid who supposedly sold his playbook, who didn't sell his playbook. So for the most part, XFL has been great, but I want the R-rated version. Friend. I want to hear every effing cuss word out of these guys.
Well, but see, at the same time, it sounds like you're offended by them fighting or something or getting into scuffles. So you want them to act like professionals, but you want them to have an R-rated version?
No, at the end of it, they're worthless fights. They're blowouts.
Of course.
So these guys are just throwing fists at each other for no reason.
I think that, and I know that happens sometimes. I didn't know that was a pandemic-like problem with the XFL. I hadn't heard that. But again, think about it like this.
The Guardians and the Vipers especially are dirty teams at the end of the games.
Okay, well, dirty is different than getting in fights, because if you're dirty, then you're trying to hurt. I guess here's what I'm saying. These dudes are so close to the cut, right? Because you're in the XFL already. You're playing for your professional lives. And so I can see chippiness coming into play a bit, because again, you're so close to being out of football forever. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm going to have to see how many. Check on this for me. Let me find out how many fights and ejections there have been at XFL games. And while we do that, we're going to say what's up to our friends this morning. P12 Foreman checking in. Foreman's Funhouse, by the way, is going to be coming aboard the program here. Foreman's going to do card breaks. He's got a whole bunch of memorabilia and things that he's going to be doing, part of his new company launch. He says, good morning, gents. Good morning, Foreman. UWL's Thomas says, good morning, Dave. Me and some of my friends were watching the ending of that MSU and K-State game. Wow, was that incredible. And we got to talk about this kid, Marquise Noel, when we come back. But this was a fantastic game. Thomas, glad you were watching. Don't forget to take this morning's poll question, okay? Go to our Facebook group page or Twitter at the Sports Carney and let us know, what did you think was the most exciting? That game versus K-State, MSU versus K-State, or UCLA Gonzaga? Another really, really close game. I also wanted to touch on this briefly, because we're seeing the likes of Eric from La Crescent, Neil Duda, a whole bunch of others checking in. And fellas, we'll get to your comments in a second. But before we take a quick break, Rob Dog from Stoddard is checking in and really kind of referring back to, Matt, something we talked about yesterday here on the program. Rob says this: Dave, I'm offended that people don't think I know what a boombox is because he's only 19. He also knows how to use a VCR, and put the VHS tape in correctly, which really there's only one way it could go in.
Yeah.
So there's really, I don't give you a whole bunch of credit for that, Rob. I'm just thinking this out because it's been a while since I've used a VHS, but there's only one way the tape goes in. So once you figure that out, it's pretty much second nature. But I don't think you should be surprised, Rob, that people don't know what a boombox is, or that people think you don't know what a boombox is, because that is typically technology that gets, thrown out long before a kid like you was born. So the fact that your parents are Mets fans, big red flag right there. probably still have Billy Joel tapes. And I would assume something of Joe Piscopo on VHS because they're Mets fans. And, you got to love things from like New York and New Jersey. So maybe, Rob, that's why you have this. But I don't think you should be surprised, though, buddy, that people think you don't know what it is only because you're 19. And these things didn't really age well, right? Like tapes don't keep great. The tape got old. You rewinded it a lot, gets a little fuzzy. The same thing with the audio cassettes. They just didn't really hold up great.
Well, you and I talked about mini discs. You remember those things back in the
day?
day?
That didn't have a long shelf life either.
No, I did not.
I'm glad I never bought one of those fucking things because I really thought about it for a minute. And I said to myself, do I really want to have to rebuy all the same CDs again? No, this is a fad and it's going to pass. And it did. I'm glad. We'll be back in just about 40 seconds. Stay tuned.
What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Welcome back, Sports Carnival, broadcasting live, Trauma Center Studio. Dave and Matt here with you, and hope you are having a great start to your Friday. Just throwing this out there because we didn't see Jimmy the Haggerty, Jimmy Namath, yesterday at the Recovery Room. I will be back behind the bar today, 11 o'clock. So if you're feeling frisky, want to get out to La Crosse, I heard Jason P1 Breacher is going to be coming to town. Come out and see us. Yesterday, Mike Byers, Matt Euler, Matty Ice came over to the bar. Matt actually came over later in the evening. He was working up some different brackets, picking up things for the family and just doing his general job of hustling, but saw Mike Byers come over and my mom stopped in, Cindy, just looking fantastic. Her smile, beautiful. If you want to come over today, say hi again. I'll be there at 11, Matt. We've got great specials. Not only do we have spicy and traditional gyros, we have a Lent special.
We're going to do fish and chips is what we're doing today.
Oh, fish and chips.
So 2 pieces of fish and your
Boom.
choice aside.
Boom. Along with our spicy and traditional
Yes,
gyros.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I was like, don't fuck around with those gyros, man. People come to the Recovery Room to get their gyro. If you tell them we have no gyro, you might get your hand put on that spit just like it was, the actual gyro meat. Which, by the way, if you didn't know this, at the Recov, we actually carve that gyro meat right off the spit. Not sure if anybody else does that in the area.
There's a few, but not many of us, that's for sure.
Okay, we're the only ones. I'm
right.
just putting that out there. Top of the morning to Eric from La Crescent. Boomstick checking in, saying top of the morning, fellas. What up, dog? Happy Funky Friday. Man, you have no idea how much I wish I could be playing BMI licensed music on the internet. That is just something that we are not capable of doing right now. But you're right, man. Happy Funky Friday to you. He says, Matt, all fun and games with your Cubbies yesterday. Enjoy your weekend. Go Bucks.
Oh, I'm rooting for the Bucks. Baseball doesn't start till next week, so I'm good to go.
Okay. How confident are you in the Cubbies this year?
I think they're middle of the pack in the NL Central. I mean,
that's fair. So Pirates and Reds worse, and then Cardinals and Brewers better.
I think it's going to be a battle between the Cubs and the Brewers, to be honest with you. It depends on what the Brewers are going to end up doing with Corbin Burns, if they can, relieve that situation. And then who knows what the Cubs are going to do or how good they're going to be. They're still so young and they have so many different players.
It's interesting with the Brewers situation because I've largely kept baseball in the back burner. The World Baseball Classic did get me a little bit more pumped up for the start of the Major League season. That was one of our polls, as a matter of fact. We'll do a battle of the polls as Matt kind of looks through our polls from this week as the show progresses on, see which ones you guys had the most interest in. But when we look at the Brewers, back to that, and the Corbin Burns situation, which you brought up, Matt, another guy came in yesterday who I'd never met before, another one of our longtime, first-time fellas, had some time with us at the bar, and great to meet you, Matt. But he brought up how dismayed he was, 41 years a Brewer fan, actually as a younger man, went to the American League Championship game, I think he said, when the Brewers ended up going to the World Series. So the point is, very dismayed was Matt about how the Brewers handled the situation in arbitration with Corbin Burns. And he essentially thinks that Corbin Burns is gone by the trade deadline. Now, Corbin Burns does have one more year of arbitration. The Brewers still have another year of control with them. But it feels like a tough pill to swallow if you're a Brewer fan that they went to war over $700,000 for one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball.
Cy Young Award winner.
What the problem is, man. I mean, throw this cat $700,000. I know $700,000, and it's not my money, so I can say that, right? Because this isn't coming out of my pocket. But 700,000 feels in terms of Major League Baseball and sports money now feels like a drop in the bucket when we're talking about one of the best pitchers in the majors. And then I started to really ponder this. What can the Brewers do if, in fact, they lose Corbin Burns? They've already sent away Josh Hader. Okay, you're going to rely on Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta to win every game for you? And do you win all of these games 1-0? Because you're going to need your pitchers to throw complete shutouts every single night because you can't score? Where's the offense? And for a longtime Brewer fan, Matt was talking about his, I wouldn't say his reluctance to get behind the team because it's not like that, but, feeling, I wouldn't say betrayed, but slightly betrayed by an ownership group that's got deep pockets themselves, but seemingly won't make that extra step forward, to put money in their team. So, we'll see. I mean, the NL Central is going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised at all, to be fair. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Reds come in ahead of the Brewers. I could see the Cubs coming in either ahead of or behind the Reds and ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. I think St. Louis runs away with this division this year, and Paul Goldschmidt was playing fantastic baseball at the World Baseball Classic. So we'll see. But yeah, go Cubbies, I guess, is a way to say fuck you, Matt. That's Eric from La Crescent. He's a Twins fan, by the way.
I'm okay. Well, who knows what's going to happen with the Twins? It's always good to have any local sports team be well for us, especially for me being in the bar business. If the Twins do well, then I'm always happy when the Twins are winning because it rings my till. We'll see how good the Correa thing works out for them because who knows how long it's going to be till his ankle's busted.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, Alex Correa seems like a nice enough guy, and that saga with him trying to get signed by San Francisco, then it was the Mets, and he ends up having to go back to the Twins on a shorter contract, which good for the Mets, or good for the Twins, excuse me, right?
Yep.
Because they get a supreme talent. I hope it holds up for him. I never wish for injuries on these guys because that sucks. You can't control it, but it sucks. Really quick, Neil Duda saying a quick hello before he goes to work today. Neil, not sure if you're still able to keep us on live. Neil's a driver, so some of these things don't come through when you're driving. They want you to pay attention to the road. Neil says a quick hello before he goes to work, hoping for a better tournament evening tonight. Last night, his bracket went from 1st to 8th.
Oof.
Well, dude, that's happening to everybody.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone, Neil.
Neil, that's happening to everybody. But this cat that we got to talk about here, Marquise Noel, last night for Kansas State, set an NCAA tournament record with 19 assists in a game. Now, what's not on this stat and what's not on the screen now, if you're watching us, is another stat that I pulled this morning when sort of putting together the stuff for the show. Marquise Noel becomes the first guy in NCAA history to have at least 20 points, 15 assists, and 5 steals in a tournament game since they began keeping the stat of steals as an official statistic. This kid is all of 5'8".
Yeah, man. Unbelievable.
He's already got 42 assists in the tournament so far. He's quick as greased lightning. He's tough as nails. He's from Harlem, so he's a New York kid. And what he did last night for Kansas State, listen, this Michigan State-Kansas State game was an instant classic. 98-93 overtime game. Just brilliant. What was it? Was it double overtime? Okay, brilliant game. Just fantastic. High scoring for a college game. But what this kid, Marquise Noel, was doing, Matt, was simply next level. He was no-look passing people. He did remind me, and I'm stealing this from Seth Greenberg because I watched him this morning early on ESPN. He reminded me of Patrick Mahomes because he was dropping no-look dimes. He gets his ankle injured, right?
Yep.
Comes back in the second half on a bum ankle.
I see where you're going there.
And still is able to, with a bad ankle, put these assists, put these players, backdoor cuts, alley-oops. When he was looking over at his coach, and I don't know if you guys and gals saw this play, Matt, I'm not sure if you did, but Marquise Noel is looking over at his coach, the K-State coach, and having like a little faux conversation, lobs it up to his man, no look, and he does a reverse jam on the lob. It was brilliant. So this particular Kansas State team, I wasn't sure they'd be able to beat Tom Izzo. Oftentimes I go for coaches in these matchups, and I said that last night on ESPN with John Papadopoulos, but this Kansas State team, man, I don't think you should sleep on him, nor should you sleep on a team like FAU, who, even though we're not talking about them now, the way that they beat Tennessee last night, that gives them a lot of confidence. This is one of those players, though, in the tournament that Matt makes the tournament. Every single year, one of these players emerges. He's one of the players that makes the tournament so exciting.
Well, and
because you just don't see it coming like this.
I have 3 takeaways from the games last night, but the one, especially about this one, you mentioned not only is he 5'8", but he's from Harlem, and he did this in Madison Square Garden. There's no bigger arena for him to be doing that, and it's wonderful for him to come out and play. And I know what you have on the poll, and I haven't been able to answer it yet because it's a tough question for me because I'm not looking at it as the game. I'm looking at it as 2 plays. So what play was the bigger play last night? The alley-oop reverse dunk from Noel or the 3-pointer from the Schusser kid from Gonzaga or whatever?
Oh, probably the bigger play.
Yeah, what play for you?
The 3-pointer from Swoosher from Gonzaga, the Vegas kid, because I mean, that was it's a tie game. There's 7.2 seconds left in the game. He comes down, drills the 3-pointer, or maybe they were down by a point.
I think they were down by 2, and they think he put him up 1.
Now, okay,
whatever.
Regardless,
yeah.
So they were down. I wanted to say it was they were down by a point. Maybe they were down by 2. Irregardless, he comes out, hits that 3. To me, that's the bigger shot.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the bigger shot. Now, Gonzaga played great defense too in that last possession. The second to last possession, UCLA ended up getting a final shot, which actually worked pretty well. That hook and ladder play they pulled off. But either way, I think that was the bigger play because of where it was. But the play that we'll see more probably on television, and the play that may end up impacting this kid's career more would be that Noel alley-oop.
Well, and
it's just so fucking cool.
I agree with you 100%. I was going with Larry Izzo's experience as a coach, not going against this kid's talent, and this kid's talent outshining Izzo's coaching abilities, obviously, yesterday.
Well, it
was crazy to watch.
Listen, and Tom Izzo, for what it's worth, talked about it in his post-game press conference. I know Foreman was disappointed that Michigan State lost. We saw P12 Foreman's comment pop up there.
Yep.
But Tom Izzo, after the game, said this: the team, Michigan State, was mesmerized by Marquise Noel. He said his players were mesmerized by the kid. And it wasn't just his scoring, which, again, kid had 20 points. So it's not like he was just out there, passing to the bigs. This dude was taking it to the rack. Now, that 20th point that he scored was that up and under play at the very end of the game. But Tom Izzo said it wasn't just that they were, in awe of his scoring ability. It was just the way that he was controlling the game. And, think about this. And we talked about Giannis yesterday, and we'll talk about him coming up more. I guess I talked about it in depth with Pop. Giannis is a great defensive player, great offensive player. He gets you stops, he gets you buckets. That's what this kid does too. The 5 steals were huge. I mean, the 5 steals were massive. So at 5'8", and you don't see this all the time, but it does happen. At 5'8", he's able to dominate the game because he's like one of these little running backs. And I think of guys throughout the years, who have Darren Sproles comes to mind right now, who have kind of belied their size because they're just so slippery and they're so dominant. He's at one of those particular sizes where it's tough to guard him, right? He's so quick. He gets under you. And he's strong. I don't know. This kid was fantastic. I thought the game last night, Kansas State and Michigan State, was the best game. But UCLA and Gonzaga, it did live up to the expectation. You remember we talked about that yesterday. That was essentially a pick 'em too. That was a point favorite for UCLA. I thought that would be the most entertaining game. It's a close one. I'll take a look at our Twitter poll. You take a look at our Facebook group page.
Will do.
Twitter at the Sports Carney. Again, at the Sports Carney on Twitter. Ask you again, best game from last night. We've got right now Michigan State, K-State leading 58.3 to 41.7. Again, that's our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. What does our Facebook group page look like?
State, this is not even a competition. Michigan State, K-State, 100%.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, we're all in Michigan State, K-State. Hey, I can't knock that. I cannot knock that at all because that was a fantastic basketball game. Now, if you're a Michigan State fan, maybe not as fantastic. I know that was what Foreman was saying, but either way, it was awesome. Rob Dog from Stoddard checking back in here, Matt, and saying this, asking this, are we sure that UConn in the Elite Eight, is this the men's tournament? Oh, I see what you're saying. UConn's got a very storied basketball history in men's basketball.
Well, and where I was going to go,
they just won the national championship in 2014.
I was thinking of who's the going back to the UConn decades ago, the Khalid El-Amin, the short little point guard who took over.
No, are you talking about Kemba Walker?
No, I'm going maybe 25 years ago, played for UConn. I'll have to look it up.
Okay,
yeah,
I don't know.
He took over the NCAA tournament at least 2 games when UConn won it way back in the day.
Well, I know that Kemba Walker really is just a teeny bit taller here than Marquise Noel that we're talking about. He was a guy that actually I could compare to Marquise Noel as also. He was a guy that helped UConn power through. But no, Rob Dog, UConn's been a very, very good men's basketball program for some time.
Yeah.
They were very good with Emeka Okafor. They've had a really storied history. So I hear what you're saying. Funny because their women's team is very good too. But it's interesting to me, while we're on that subject, how certain things sort of line up together when it comes to sports programs, athletics. So look at what Alabama is doing right now. P12 Foreman checking back in. He says now all he can say is, let's go Alabama. So Alabama right now looks like they're probably the best team overall talent-wise in the tournament. Well, that's basically what we say about the Alabama football team every year. Yeah. We look at a team like Iowa, men's basketball, tournament team, good team. Their women's basketball program doing great. Miami, a number 5 seed. They'll be coming up later today and playing in the Sweet 16. Their women's team, same thing, right? It's interesting to me to see some teams sometimes how they go together, not necessarily hand in glove, but the trajectories follow each other. If you're having super success in one area, it can kind of lead into the other areas. And with the sport of basketball, the men and women's programs in some of these cases seem to kind of marry each other in success. Now, Gino Auriemma is going to go down as like the John Wooden of women's college basketball. So I don't think that, it's unfair for Rob Dog to say, that about the men's team. But either way, UConn's men's program, very good history.
And it was Khalid El-Amin, 1998, to go back to that. And if you want to look what Miami did both on the men's and women's side, both taking out Indiana, which were the women's was a number 1 and the men's was pretty high ranked up there. So there are certain colleges out there that are just going a long way with everything. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I say, interesting sometimes how one thing will begin to cause a tide, right? Or a tide swell, for a groundswell, if you will, for other things to sort of follow. Neil Duda is still with us, or at least he was a minute or two ago. Said, hey, Foreman, roll tide. He says he needs Houston and Texas wins as well. So Neil must be in a survivor pool here as far as his bracket is concerned, but I like that. Look, this is going to be a really, really fun game. Fun day, I should say, as far as college basketball is concerned. And let's talk about that schedule here briefly. So we've got coming up today. Hold on, let me flip us over here. Had us up on Friday. We've got San Diego State, Alabama, tipping us off at 5:30. We'll be watching this game at the Recov. Miami, Houston, game we just kind of talked about there. 6:15, Princeton and Creighton. This might be the most fascinating game of the day because Princeton at a 15 seed doesn't look like they are really intimidated by Creighton, which listen, I don't know if they should be or not, but Creighton is still the lone team, I think, left for the Big East. Maybe Xavier's there too, I guess. But Creighton's a team that perhaps they should be afraid of. Princeton doesn't feel it. And this could be a really fun game to watch. So that'll tip off at 8 o'clock. The nightcap tonight, Matt, will be Xavier versus number 2 Texas. That's 8:45. So again, if you want to get out, hang out with your buddies, maybe bring the wife, that's your thing. Come to the Recov tonight. Watch the games. Like I said last night, intense atmosphere. And this is the other fun thing about college basketball. Probably even more so than other playoffs because of the single elimination nature of it and how many games go on for at least a short duration of time. The intensity that you can feel from having 2 individual contests go on that both mean so much, hanging in the balance, one on one screen, one on the other, a group of fans watching in the back room, a group of fans watching in the front room. And, you're hearing these cheers and jeers from both sides. It's that kind of thing, especially when you're at a communal gathering place like the Recov, that makes this tournament feel and seem all that much more fun.
And I was going to throw out this for another one of those winners yesterday would have been everybody who was at Madison Square Garden. You got to watch 2 of the best games back-to-back ever. So I could only imagine how electric being in Madison Square Garden was for Michigan State versus Kansas State. And then when FAU came out, and one of the big takeaways I took away from the FAU game is just the pure joy in those guys, those kids, when they came out and won. That was what the NCAA tournament was all about. They went to the locker room. They went back out to see their fans and family and friends. And then they were trying to get escorted by security back there telling them, no, you're not supposed to do this. And they're like, fuck it, man. We're in the moment.
We're going.
And that's what it's all about. That was great to watch or great to see.
I love that too. Just the unbridled enthusiasm that comes with all this.
Yep.
Speaking of unbridled enthusiasm, he always seems to have a ton of it. Matty Ice checking in saying 2 classic games last night. I think I give the slight edge to MSU State for the better game, but I told you about Gonzaga, LOL. Listen, Matt, I think we all kind of talked about this yesterday. I said it with John Papadopoulos. I thought that game, UCLA and Gonzaga, had the makings to be the most entertaining game. UCLA was a point favorite. I thought UCLA had a chance to come out. Nick Cronin, the coach of UCLA, has done just such a great job. But again, I said it would probably be the most entertaining game. I didn't think UCLA would blow anybody out. And as a matter of fact, UCLA was getting hammered and they roar back. And Gonzaga has to bail themselves out with a 3-pointer. bro, it was a great game. But I thought, for what it was worth, Matt, the MSU K-State game, just a tad bit better. The overtime, that really set it off, and that put it into another level for me.
Well, and you also have 50-year-old Drew Timme coming out, showing up again.
That's
too.
right.
Where do you think he is going to end up? What's his prospects for the NBA?
It's interesting that you asked that. Let's do this. We'll say what's up to our good buddy Kyle Cable at One Trust Real Estate, the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival, who's doing great work for us right now. We'll come back. We'll talk about that because that's an interesting question. I've been thinking about that one, so stick around.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Former UWL Eagle, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate. Awesome guy. Tony and Brian, Preferred Insurance, would love to help you out with your insurance needs. Just get a quote from them. Find out how easy it is to save. When you go to Preferred Insurance, they have all the nation's largest insurance providers that they can choose from, giving you the best options and the best deals. Of course, our buddy Sean O'Neill at the O'Neill Law Firm, here to help you out if your situation gets a little sticky, family, criminal, even bankruptcy, and he's downtown in La Crosse as well. If you want to make some wagers, do so with the official betting partner of the program, BetUS.com. Enter promo code Carnival on your initial sign-up. Get 125% free play deposit match when you make your initial sign-up. All right, so Drew Timme, and you said 50-year-old. I thought he was more like 70, but we'll go with 50. I think he's got 4 kids right now that are graduating from Gonzaga. Actually, yes, I think 4 kids graduating Gonzaga, 3 grandchildren that are playing AAU basketball, 1 great-grandchild on the way. So Drew Timme, very old, and been in college basketball for a long time. Actually, he and Michael Jordan were roommates at one point before he transferred out, went to Gonzaga. Michael Jordan just turned 60. So Drew Timme last night was awesome and, bully balled Gonzaga a lot, at least powered them quite a bit in the first half, especially into the second half. Where do I think he goes in the NBA? So it's interesting, or what are his prospects? He probably is a player in the NBA at some point. What kind of player he's going to be is largely going to be determined, I think, by the team he plays for. If he gets drafted by a team like the Spurs, the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Toronto Raptors, the Golden State Warriors.
Who would you compare him to currently in the NBA?
Ooh, that's a tough call. Currently in the NBA, I don't think there's a real, there could be comps. Luka Garza's probably a taller comp for him, right? The Iowa guy that's playing. Yep. I want to say right now for the Orlando Magic, if I'm not mistaken. He played for the Pistons in his rookie year. Listen, there aren't a lot of comps for an unathletic white guy in the NBA right now. There just aren't. There used to be quite a bit. There were quite a few comps for guys like Drew Timme, but the game has changed. He doesn't really have an outside shot, not so to speak. He can hit it once in a while, but he's largely a post player. He works down low. He reminds me of a college version of like Kevin McHale, because he's just the footwork. Minnesota fans will love this. The footwork that he has, the under the basket stuff is really good. But in the NBA, if he plays for the right kind of team that can figure out a way to really use him, I'm sure he's going to be a great locker room guy. Seems like a really smart basketball player, which teams always need.
Seems oft injured.
I don't keep up enough. I don't keep up enough with him to really know his injury status. But if that's the case, that would be a red flag. So I think that his prospects are like this: 2nd round pick. I can see him being a 2nd round pick, going to a team that's got an established identity, culture, and or a way of operating. Like with a team. Okay, so a team like the Miami Heat or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Toronto Raptors. I'm just picking some that seem to have cultures in place. You got Nick Nurse, you got Spoelstra, you got Budenholzer. I mean, Steve Kerr, if he stays in Golden State. Some of those teams just have a certain way about playing. If he's on one of those teams, I can see him being utilized right, getting the kind of development. He can get better. How much better? Probably not a ton, but he can get better in the NBA. And then I could see him carving out a role for himself. I think the fact that he's such a smart player and a good locker room guy probably gives him a couple more years in the NBA. But if he can't develop a shot, if that's the thing that really holds him back, he's going to be a defensive liability. That's going to be another issue for him. He's going to get wrecked by dudes in the NBA. They're going to just fly around him. If he can't keep anybody in front of him and he can't develop a shot like which Luka Garza has, he'll have a hard time sticking. But I think he does have a role. I think he probably does get drafted. Some people were telling me the kid would never be drafted. I don't know. I think that, you look at a player like that, if you're a GM and you figure something out, if you've got a spot.
I was just surprised he didn't come out last year because I thought that last year he had better chance of getting drafted not in the second round, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I think that's why you stay if you're a guy like Drew Timme, because maybe even Drew Timme and his agent, because you can do that now. You can talk to your agent. They can test the waters in the NBA draft. If you don't fall within like the top 10 picks or so, you can go back to college. Like they no harm, no foul, right? Because college is already playing this fucking game of chicken anyways, where, how much do we want to pay you, naughty? Well, we'll pay you some, but I don't know. They give you now this out where you can sort of test the waters, find out where your draft stock is. If you don't like where you're at, you can go back to college, which is smart. Nigel Hayes did that for the Badgers. Did not work out well for him. He thought that he needed to develop a 3-point shot, which he did, but it just didn't work out. He had a couple of cups of coffee with some teams on 10-day contracts. But the point is with Drew Timme, maybe he did find out, Matt, and maybe they told him, go back to college. Right. I don't think he's done anything to hurt his stock because look at where Gonzaga's at.
Right. They've gotten this far in the tournament. So
absolutely.
Making it better for himself.
Sure. And he's more of a central figure now. Again, he's more of the story. When Jalen Suggs was on the team 2 years ago, now Jalen Suggs is hitting half-court game winners versus UCLA, taking over the tournament. They lose in the championship to Baylor, but that was a really good game too. Drew Timme still had a lot of press, but it was Jalen Suggs going, 5th in the draft, right? So, Drew Timme, I think, gets himself in the NBA. I don't know how long he can play. I would probably say 5-6 years. Another guy that he could kind of remind me of, Luke Walton.
Okay.
Luke Walton in the NBA. He played at Arizona, but really good passer. Luke was a much better passer than Drew Timme is now, but he could kind of remind me of a Luke Walton player too.
Well, and you can see the intellectual in that too, because Luke Walton ended up becoming a head coach. So
yeah, absolutely. Now that was a failed experiment, but whatever. This is the problem when you end up coaching with like the Golden State Warriors, who are a plug and play team. So Steve Kerr was out. Luke Walton comes in. They go on a historic 40-game run. People are looking at like Luke Walton, like he's Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. I'm like, dude, this isn't a thing.
Didn't he coach for the Lakers
yes,
for a while? That didn't work out very well.
Oh, God.
Sorry, man.
Listen, Laker fans wanted it to work because at that time they were so cap-strapped and everything was blown up from the end of what Kobe Bryant was at the end of that career. And Luke Walton was like the biggest free agent signing the Lakers could get for a number of years. And no, it did not work out great. It really didn't. I want to transition just a little bit here, Matt, because we're looking at our polls through the week, and we're going to combine all of the week's polls. We're going to do a battle of the polls, see which one of those topics you guys and gals had the most interest in. But something came up last night, and I'm going to divert a little bit from sports, just briefly. We got NCAA March Madness basketball. We'll talk about the Bucks at the Jazz coming up tonight. We still have XFL Week 6. But something came up last night at the bar, which I was just fascinated by. I did not know that this particular subject matter was in debate, but it is. And I am all about it. I'm all about poking holes in these stories and these narratives. If you know me, you know I kind of feel like the moon landing is a bit of bullshit. All right, so we've got that out there. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just think it's really fun to ask interestingly simple questions about things that, oftentimes we take for granted. Now,
I'm walking late into this conversation, so you have at it, my friend. The floor is yours.
Listen, like I said, this is something I had never pondered before, ever. I was just surprised at how much traction this particular subject got and how many people around the same age had the same feeling. So downstairs last night, again, fun night at the Recov, watching these games. A group of our friends start talking about Helen Keller. That's right. Helen Keller, blind, deaf, mute, speaker, orator, author, driver of automobiles and airplanes. Okay. Well, I grew up with the Helen Keller story. I read about this in school. I watched the movie. I was fascinated. Helen Keller, somebody who was really at the time a considerable outcast, right? Her family had tons of money, but she was a considerable outcast, being taught by a special teacher how to read, how to write, how to eventually speak, give lectures, all this. Well, these, I don't want to call them kids because these are grown adults. We're talking about people in their mid-20s, 7 of them. told me they believe Helen Keller and the story of Helen Keller, Matt, is a hoax. That Helen Keller was either A, not who she said she was, or B, not as disabled as they made it seem. And when they started to give me their reasons, some of the, I guess you would say, foundational pieces of their argument against Helen Keller, you know, I started to scratch my head a bit and say, all right, they might be onto something. And one of the things that really tripped me up was, again, if you're going to teach somebody language that can't speak, can't hear, can't talk, at what point do you come with word association? How does, like we saw in the movie, you know, touching hand to water end up being, you know, water spoken out? And I tried to go back in defense of Helen Keller and say, look, I mean, it started with the color association, and well, then they brought up how would she know what colors were as being blind. And it's been a long time since I read this fucking book and a long time since I'd seen this movie. And so I will tell you that Dylan, Bree, Tess, Allie, you guys got me thinking about Helen Keller as a potential hoax here. And I just, look, Matt, I started thinking, if you take Helen Keller away, now we're starting to tear away the foundations of all American mythology. Pretty soon you're going to tell me that George Washington, you know, told a lie at some point. I mean, come on, man. At what point are we going to start really just tearing up all of American fabled history? Could Helen Keller really have been a hoax?
Why do people want to waste their time on some of this shit? There's so much.
We watch sports.
I know,
why do we waste our time with that?
I guess I don't want. I don't want. I guess I'm not going to go back to something that supposedly happened in 1882 when she was 19 years old or 19 months old. I'm sorry.
I was like 8. She wasn't that old.
19 months old.
Okay.
As you brought up, things were a lot different in the 1882, especially for rich old white people that would just send your kids away to these special schools if you didn't fit in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are out there. I don't know if it's so much of a conspiracy. I understand where people can see how, if she's blind and deaf, how can she see
and mute
how well, and then learns how to talk,
yes,
learns how to read,
and also fly a plane.
Yes,
and drive a car.
But it wasn't a Tesla either, though. So that's at least she's got. You know, if she's around now, it would have been a Tesla.
Well, probably. Exactly. And see, and this is what I tried to get over with these young people, again, in their mid-20s. But these are full-grown adults, and that's why I find this just to be so fascinating. And they had me sort of convinced for a moment that I should investigate this more. So I'm like, well, I guess with a plane, you know, maybe when they say she flew a plane, you have somebody up there and they're just propping her up there and like putting hands on little sticks, as those planes back in the day were just a couple of handle paddles, right? So maybe they just had her arms like on these little handle paddles, and they were like, look, Helen's flying the plane. Maybe they did that with the car. I don't know. And there wasn't a lot of traffic back then, right? So they had her out in a field. Maybe she just drove through the field. See, this is where we need to get some more tape. It's like Babe Ruth. Could he have ever hit a fucking pitcher from today? Probably not. But we don't know because we haven't seen any tape.
Did he actually point to left field? You know what I'm saying? Or,
exactly.
And I'm saying to these gals and guys that you're talking to, I mean, if you want to, you know, go after something that, you know, might be able to figure out. Speaking of planes, go find Amelia Earhart for us. You know, I mean, there's got to be something going on out there. You know, because we can go all day. And
dude, I've already hit up Amelia's Instagram account.
Nice.
What are you talking about? She just didn't want to be found. She was getting a little tired of all the hubbub. You know, just got a little sick of all the
hanging out in Fiji.
Well, you know, sometimes the American media, even back in the 30s, it could be a little intense. Yeah. I think Amelia did right. She's out there with MH370.
Okay, I got where
you remember what? Remember that thing?
Yeah. Didn't a Netflix movie just come out on that, and everybody's watching it? The plane.
I've got to see it. I haven't seen it. I was on live. I was doing my show in Vegas at the time. Chad and I were on our morning show out there, and I remember this story. And I'm like, how the fuck do you lose a plane like that in today's day and age? I mean, they find everything.
Yep.
They find everything. How do you lose that? This is why I want to watch this documentary, because I haven't seen anything but the trailer. Some of the people that were on the MH370 plane, very, very interesting individuals. It's kind of like some of the planes that went down during 9/11. Some of the people that were on some of these planes, and I know I'm using air quotes, I don't know why I did that, but some of the people that were on these planes.
For our listeners.
Sure. Not trying to be too much of a tinfoil hat guy this morning, but there were some interesting names and people that had, I don't know, some interesting ties to things. I could make all sorts of connections, which I won't do right now. Is Helen Keller a hoax? This is something that I think bears a lot more investigation. So I will thank Tess and Allie and Bree and Dylan and Dylan's buddy, Big Drunk, who I can never remember his name, for really kind of hoisting this to the forefront of me.
I'm saying we have to do an hour of conspiracies, just you and me. I'll just ask you questions and you can go off. We'll just do a full hour of conspiracies.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I know that Mike Byers is checking in again, and Mike's saying, good morning, guys. Good morning, Mike. Mike Byers thinks that Bigfoot is an alien and that it's real.
Well,
so you could talk to Mike about this. Mike's got all sorts of interesting shit on Bigfoot as an alien.
I don't believe I believe in Bigfoot. I'm just not going with the whole alien thing.
Wait until you hear Mike's supposition.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying, man. You could start to make all sorts of interesting connections, and I am 100% on board with taking this show in that direction. If you're okay with that, I am more than happy to do that.
We'll go to Elkhorn. We'll go down and see if we can find the Beast of Braid Road in Elkhorn, because that's supposedly the most haunted street in Wisconsin. So
brilliant.
We'll go check it out.
Brilliant. Who would have ever thought P12 Foreman's going to bring us back to sports here, right? Who would have ever thought? So P12 Foreman checking in as Foreman's Funhouse says Spring Grove won yesterday, is now in the Minnesota State Finals. Congratulations to Spring Grove, one of our neighboring cities just over the river, the beautiful Mississippi River. So Spring Grove, congratulations. Rob Dog from Stoddard checking in says they are now in the state semis, 1 win away from the state finals. And Rob Dog bringing this up, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm going to go with it. Says, Dave, in Utah, it is illegal for anyone under the age of 18 to use social media after 10:30 p.m. So I guess if we lived in Utah, I'm a criminal for using it after work. We might as well dive into this. Well, Rob Dog, Utah's a weird state.
Yeah, they just passed
It's beautiful, but it's weird.
They passed it so that parents have more access or control over their kids. So I don't know exactly if he's got the age right on that.
See, I don't know if it's just for parents and their kids. We're talking about a polygamous state. Isn't it for husbands and their little teeny wives?
All their wives, yeah.
Well, their children wives, mostly. The FLDS wants to have those children wives. That's why, little known fact, Brigham Young is mispronounced. It was actually originally, and this was his real name, it was Brigham Young.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Hello, this is Professor Fission for Nuke and Nuke Light, the world's first nuclear beer. Brewed and nuked in 1956 and recently found in Warehouse 14. How's it still fresh, you may ask? Well, thanks to our friends Cesium-137, Stromium-90, and Plutonium-239, these beers will stay fresh for another 90 years. Not only does Nuke and Nuke Light have 10 times the kick, but you're sure to be a hit at the party because it helps your urine glow in the dark.
Nuke and Nuke Light. Pick up a case today before it melts through your grocer's floor. And Duluth Care. Yummy.
Well, if you don't like the refreshing taste of Nuke Light, may I recommend some Eagle Park Ecto Cooler. It tastes just like the Ecto Cooler that we had when we were kids, just now with liquor, which is great. Also, what we've got downstairs at the Recov, by the way, open back up at 11 this morning. I'll be behind the bar there with Matt, at least to get you guys and gals going for lunch. We have got alcoholic Sunny D. Sunny D Hard. I don't know, is it just called Sunny D?
It's Sunny D, and we got to be careful on that because we had 2 cases in, and then that shit flew for everybody else.
No kidding.
So we're on back order right now. I don't know if it came in yesterday, then we'll have it maybe today.
Well, I spoke too soon.
Yeah, that shit flew off the shelf as soon as we got it up there. So
Sunny D's on life support. We're just drowning ourselves and our sorrows in alcoholic memories of our children's and our childhoods. This is great. This is one of the reasons why my favorite shot right now is Dr. McGillicuddy Butterscotch. It tastes like a Werther's Original. If a Werther's Original was, made by your grandfather who was giving you Robitussin in your bottle to get you to go to sleep and stop crying, right? A little whiskey in your sippy cup, like, shut up, kid. Here, by the way, this is called a Werther's Original. What is it, Grandpa? It's worth. Just take it. You'll find this everywhere when you're 25, and then you drink it. It's pretty good. All right, so welcome back to the Sports Carnival. Again, broadcasting live, Trauma Center Studio, powered by the Recov. We've been all over the place this morning. One of our poll questions, though, that we've got for you, and this is the poll question on both Twitter and Facebook, is going to be part of the battle of the polls. Matt's been looking through our polls on our Facebook group page to see which one got the most interest. But the poll that we've got for you today is simply this: best game from last night. K-State, Michigan State, overtime. K-State wins. Marquise Noel, 20 points, 19 assists, and 5 steals. Or was it UCLA Gonzaga, where Matty Ice correctly called out the Gonzaga Bulldogs to come out on top? They did so by a couple of points. Huge three-pointer with 7 seconds left. Gave that victory to Gonzaga. So which of those two games did you think was the best? Our Facebook group page, like I've mentioned, is one place you take this. On Twitter, Matt, where I'm looking right now, 53.3% of respondents say Michigan State, K-State, 46.7% on UCLA Gonzaga. Fairly close poll there. I know when we checked in originally, it was 100% for Michigan State, K-State.
Yeah, for some reason, mine's not uploading as fast as yours are, so I'm sorry about that, brother. I'm still at 100% on mine.
It might still be at 100%. I'll upload it here. The Twitter feed, which I was just looking at, is close.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're still at 100%.
Yep.
Here on our Facebook group page.
I was looking at your. Never mind. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, brother.
So as far as our polls this week, though, are concerned, Matt, which of the polls have you seen that got the most action? I mean, at least on our Facebook group page, because Twitter's a little different. But what about our Facebook group page? Which poll got the most action, the most intense conversation going this week?
Well, right off the boat, with 62 votes tallied, it was what would mean the most for Wisconsin sports fans. The options were Packers Super Bowl, Bucks Championship, Brewers World Series, Badgers National Championship. Some gentleman wrote in WWE Wrestling, but the winner on that one with 59% is the Brewers World Series.
Okay, so that was the poll that got the most votes then so far this week. All right, well, let's talk about that, because I think that we hit on this yesterday, right? So this was our poll question yesterday. The Brewers World Series, and I think World Series in general, still do hold like a really special, magnificent, storied place in the hearts of American men, especially sports fans, and I think their respective owners and fan bases too. So I can see why this one would be the answer. Also, and we talked about this, well, you kind of poke some fun because you've seen, in your lifetime, a Super Bowl, World Series, NBA championships, and NHL Stanley Cups. If your state or your team doesn't have a World Series victory, your football team's storied like the Packers, the Bucks are multiple-time champions. The Badgers don't have national championships, but
we brought up Bud Grant yesterday. Those Vikings are 0-4, so they're having a tough thing, that Super Bowl thing too.
Right on. So, I mean, Minnesota would be tough on that one. They've got some championships, but I guess when you think about the Brewers and why this poll is winning, why that particular response is winning like the way that it is on our Facebook page, I think it's because the Brewers don't have a World Series, and I just know how many people here in the state love the Brewers. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, a listener, long time, first time, Matt came into the bar yesterday and was talking about how he's seen this team for 40 some years, loved them for that entire time. Feels like he's being a little let down because they're not paying players. So, the idea that a World Series always eludes Brewer fans is probably why this poll question is getting the kind of action that it is on our group page.
I can see that happening. I guess for me, like I said yesterday, if the Brewers ever make it to the World Series, me rooting for the Cubs most of my life, I will be there to party and watch the Brewers hopefully win that championship.
Oh, dude, wouldn't that be the best? I also think that it would probably have been better for the Milwaukee Brewers and really our entire region if the Brewers remained in the American League.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the Cubs and Brewers in the World Series. That would have been awesome.
Would have been fantastic. The other thing is, too, you don't have to play against, a rival in Chicago. They can outspend you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They can I wouldn't say they don't fan you, because Milwaukee turns out fans amongst the best teams in Major League Baseball. The attendance for Milwaukee's games is up in the top 5 every single year with the Cubs. But the Cubs do, and their fans infiltrate American Family Field. Yep. So do Brewer fans up in Wrigley, but I think more Cub fans here than we send out there. But if you had that American League, National League thing, then you have interleague play, which they'd get a couple of chances to go back and forth probably every year, right? A couple of game series. But then you get to see a lot more of the Minnesota Twins. And you'd have the Brewers, Minnesota coming here. So you'd be able to cross over with that rivalry and kind of hook those two together. And the American League, I think for, a lot of years probably would have given the Brewers more of a leg up because they had the DH. Now it's universal, so that doesn't really matter. But I would have liked the way that those matchups set up a little bit more. How it stands now, I don't have any major gripes with it. And Milwaukee's been very, very successful recently, but the World Series feels like it's way further away for the Brewers now than it did 4 or 5 years ago. When I moved out here and the Brewers weren't good and then they got good, I mean, they were a couple of steps away from going to the series against that Dodger team. Took them to 7. Well, and that was magical.
And I guess thinking about being in the NL, you always thought that they may have a better chance going forward because, like, you bring up the Dodgers, but in the AL, you always had the Red Sox who were outspending you, the Yankees that were outspending you. You know, even the Marlins, or I guess they were in I get what I'm. There were a lot of teams in the American League that bigger markets spending more money.
Well, and this is something that I talked about yesterday with Matt at the bar, and we've probably all talked about this collectively. As much as Major League Baseball really is about, you know, who can lay down the heaviest coin to get some of these players and teams. When was the last time the Yankees won a series?
It's been years.
It's been a long time. But look at the teams that have been knocking or have won series. You've got Tampa Bay, nearly came away with the World Series and have been very good. They play with a shoestring budget. Nobody goes to their games. The Marlins have won 2 World Series. The Royals went to 2, won 1. Small market teams, and the Dodgers are not a small market team, but they do this as great as anybody else that's playing on a budget, have to get better at their scouting. Your brother's a scout in the NFL. I'm sure if we talk to a major league scout, Bob Ibeck's son, Kevin, works for the Rays, is one of their scouts. Okay. Kevin's one of the reasons they're so good. If you're one of the teams that knows you can't outspend, you got to get better at developing your talent. Now, while the Dodgers have recently spent, that was not really ever their MO. It wasn't. They developed their players through an incredible minor league system, pull these guys out of nowhere. They fucking brought Yasiel Puig on a boat, like over on a raft back in the day, got him into the league. You know, Tampa Bay does great. Kansas City does great. The Brewers have to get better at identifying talent and also then retaining talent. Yes. When you start to look at the way the Brewers have traded away the likes of Zach Greinke and others in favor of the Ryan Brauns, the Prince Fielders of the world, they've just made miscalculations on talent evaluation. And I think they're doing that with Corbin Burns. $700,000 fucking dollars. I mean, to you and me, that's a lot of money, right? Like, that's a lot of money. It shouldn't be to these guys.
Nope, not at all. Especially for as good as he's been, like you brought up earlier. Who else is going to be, who's going to lead that rotation? So it could be a rough year for the Brewers and the Cubs.
It could be a very rough year for the Brewers and the Cubs. But fortunately, we will whittle away the summer days with the sweet sounds of Brewer and Cubs baseball. And out on the patio, baby, I tell you what, like today, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see people fill up that patio, because if it stays sunny like it is now on that stamped concrete in the back of the Recub, 7th and Mississippi, boy, all sorts of magic can happen. I tell you what, upstairs here, outside of the Trauma Center studio, it gets to be like 10, 12 degrees warmer. I cannot wait. Yoshi and I were already game planning bar stools, zero gravity chairs, bistro tables. This thing's going to be just way too much fun. Speaking of fun, coming up tonight, and if you're out and about, maybe you want us to throw on the Bucks game. We'll have it up at the Recub. I know we've got our March Madness games, but we've got plenty of TVs. The Bucks are in Utah. Game's going to be tipping off at 8 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone, 9 o'clock out west, and they're in Mountain Time Zone, so that's why it's a little bit more favorable for us. The Bucks are gearing up for a Jazz team, though, that has been, I think, performing well over expectations. Chad and I talked about this a number of times when the program was going on, because he's a big Danny Ainge fan. Utah's 22-14 at home. That's fine. The Bucks are 22-13 on the road. That's fine too. The Bucks are on an absolute mission right now. Utah doesn't listen. They're not out of anything in the Western Conference, right? Utah's still hanging around. They're most likely a play-in playoff team. Cool. The Bucks are looking to be the number 1 team in the NBA for the entire postseason. And the way that they have played over the last, 25, 27 games is nothing short of phenomenal. So the Bucks, you can see on the graphic, and if you can, I'll tell you, are 9-point favorites, Matt. The total on this game is sitting at 235. So we expect to see some scoring, and I believe there will. Lauren Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, the guys for Utah can play. These are good players. They're not scrubs. But Milwaukee's defense, plus their ability to score at every single level, guard play, center play, forward play with Giannis you see on the screen, is just right now second to none in the NBA. Should be a fun one. Again, Utah's one of these teams you can't take for granted. They could definitely give the Bucks a real fight and a scare, and they could beat Milwaukee. I don't see that happening. I think Milwaukee's going to win and probably cover the spread. 9 points on the road, little bit tough to lay, but the way that Milwaukee is playing, this being the first game now of a 4-game road trip, I think they'll be juiced up to go. I like Milwaukee in this spot, and I think that Utah, again, good team, won't be able to match the firepower, the defensive intensity of Milwaukee. And, you and I have talked about this guy so many times. Brook Lopez, just what a fantastic season he is having. Just kudos to this guy for developing a completely different game than he had for the first decade of his career, where he was an all-star and has just turned out to be such a fantastic player, both offensively and defensively for this Bucks team. Again, game tips off tonight, 8 o'clock from Utah.
Well, I like you going with the over-under. The Bucks are averaging, I think, about 115 points a game during the year. The only thing that scares me tonight is I believe that they're resting Crowder, Myers Leonard, and Goran Dragic. So I don't know if that makes it
not really, because Dragic really hasn't played much this season. Jay Crowder probably
played yet for the Bucks yet.
I don't think so. Crowder, fine, we could go without him. Myers Leonard, he was a piece that the Bucks really needed to have in as a stopgap in case something happened
for the rest of the year, brother.
You know what? I'm not, because who was really their backup? They've already dealt Serge Ibaka, right? They moved off of him when they made moves, so they don't have him around anymore. He was part of the Jay Crowder trade. I think they needed another big body, and Myers Leonard can pass. He can set picks. I don't mind him. He's a good guy to just have on the bench, just in case shit happens, right? Like, just in case. All right, P12 Foreman says he's going to be out there on the patio today with John. Boy, as P12 Foreman recovers from this back surgery, which, by the way, is healing fantastic. Foreman was at the bar yesterday. My mom, a massage therapist here at Brilliant Body Works in town, is, kind of giving him a shoulder massage. And she's like, dude, you're doing great. But as he is starting to recover from this, he is finding all sorts of free time. And we're just loving having him at the recovery room. He's finally starting to eat, which has been kind of interesting and awesome, too. Our servers haven't had to find him as his food was just sitting there getting cold. Have a great rest of your Friday, guys and gals. Come and see us. Maddie and I are behind the bar starting at 11. P12 Foreman's going to be there. Who knows? Maybe we can talk Jimmy Haggerty to come out. He said he would be there yesterday. Didn't show up. Sad. But maybe we can get him today. Until next Monday, if we don't see you, have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy.
Bet the Sea Dragons. Peace.